Can I get you to introduce yourself, please?
My name is and I'm the manager of the organisation called Merseyside.
And you've put on a special event today for 3 Airmen. Is that correct?
That's right. So today we are commemorating the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Britain. This event was brought by my a need to learn more about the Polish heritage here, and when I've learned that we have a Polish pilot buried at West Abbey Cemetery, I thought I wanted to learn more about him, and quite symbolically I drove there 2 years ago looking for his grave and couldn't find it, and on the last lap around I found those 3 graves where there's a Polish pilot buried in between the Czech guys. I put a candle on his grave. It was 5th of November, and then when I started to look for him online to learn who he was, I learned that the following day was his birthday. When I found this, I have now a special connection with him. I would like to honour him. And when the 85th anniversary of Battle of Britain is coming up, I thought this is an amazing critical opportunity to bring people to RAF Speke, well now Crown Plaza Hotel, gather people together and talk about the Merseyside field, the Liverpool field, and the contribution of the Polish and Czech Airmen into the battle.
And if anybody wants to know more about it and also about your society, where can they go?
Okay, so if you were to look to find out more about the Merseyside field, there is a website, exactly that, called merseysidefield.co.uk. You'll be able to find more information about airmen who had links to Liverpool, who are now buried around Merseyside. And if you would like to join any of our events or learn more about Polish heritage, you can find us on our Facebook, on Merseyside Polonia. You can also go on our website, which is www.merseysidepolonia.co.uk.
Thank you and well done. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Just to have a protection against
So next time,
about 20
you won't make it through. It's just
Okay, we're Merseyside. Oh, that one flew. Who's a clever boy then?
So you ask everyone to take a seat, please. We do have Deputy Lieutenant, Deputy Lord Mayor, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you all to Crown Plaza Hotel, the old RAF Speke Airport. It's an incredible pleasure and honour to have you all here today, especially that we had this a historical moment at the West Abbey Cemetery where we got to pay respects to the fallen airmen who stationed here at RAF Speke in the 40s, and unfortunately they have lost their lives. So I just wanted to once again extend my thanks and gratitude for your attendance this morning. And I'm pleased now ask the Deputy Lord Mayor of Liverpool, Councillor William Shelton, to join me here. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, it is an honour to stand before you today at RAF Speke, a site forever linked to the courage and sacrifice of those who served during the Battle of Britain, and a site that helped protect our city from the Nazi Luftwaffe attacks. We gather here today not only to remember a pivotal moment in our nation's history, but to pay tribute to the extraordinary bravery of young men and women who defended our freedom. The Battle of Britain was fought in the skies over this country in the summer and autumn of 1940 was one of the most critical moments of World War II. Britain did not stand alone against tyranny, and it was the courage and determination and the collective of the few, as they were later called by Sir Winston Churchill, that turned the tide. Here at RAF Speke, the rest and replenished base, aircrafts and international crews played their part in that defence. This place, like so many airfields across the nation, was alive with the sound of engines, the dedication of ground crews, and the spirit of those who never wavered in their duty. Today, we lay wreaths and observe the silence at the graves of Polish and Czechoslovakian airmen. We remember not just those who gave their lives in 1940, but also the enduring legacy of their service. Their courage reminds us of the cost of peace, the responsibility that we all share in preserving the freedoms for which they fought. It's fitting that the future generations should learn from their example. Our duty is to ensure that the memory of the Battle of Britain is never forgotten, and that the sacrifices made here at RAF Speke and across the country remain a guiding light in uncertain times. On behalf of the city and the Lord Mayor's office, I offer our deepest respect, our gratitude. Let us continue to honour their memory, not just today, but every day, in how we value peace, unity and resilience. Thank you.
Could I please invite the Consul General of the Czech Republic of Manchester, David Faust.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let me start, let me start with one big thank you to Merseyside, Polonia, for putting this event together. This, the start that we had at noon, remembering our heroes, was a wonderful and I think very poignant moment for me. I'm pretty young, I'm 50, so I don't remember the war. But what really touched me was the 4 soldiers in the West Derby Cemetery lying side by side. The 3 Czechoslovak Czechs and the Pole in between them. And I think, it shows the spirit of togetherness. Not just that the heroes, fought and died together, side by side, more than 80 years ago, but the spirit that we should be inspired by today. I think as we stand, and that applies not just to Czechs, Poles, Slovaks, the British obviously, face to face the threat of tyranny that is again, rising as a menace in the air. I think this shows us the spirit and should be the guiding light for us in the future. But I think that really touched me today at noon. I have nothing else to say than just thank you very much for bringing us all together for this special event. And just bear it in mind that the heroism and the sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice that so many of our heroes paid during the Battle of Britain and during World War II should be inspiration for us today and in the future and for the generations to come. Thank you. Thank you.
Could I please invite the Consul of the Republic of Poland in Manchester, Mr. Radosław Gramski.
Deputy Lord Lieutenant, Deputy Lord Mayor, Consul General, distinguished guests. Thank you very much for coming. Because today, when we commemorate the 85th anniversary of the Battle of Britain, we show our respect to our descendants who fought for freedom. Obviously, Polish and Czechoslovak soldiers couldn't fight for the freedom of our countries on our land, but were doing everything they could to help get rid of tyranny and Nazism and communism. And today's event is a wonderful symbol of friendship between nations, which is very important because today, as Consul General said, the threat is still pretty strong, and what their sacrifice shows us that we should remain united in the event of the threats that are in Europe, not only in Europe, but for the whole democratic world. So let's keep this in mind and close to our hearts. And thank you for Merseyside Polonia, because you are doing a great job here. And thank you for your partners for bringing to life this wonderful event. I hope that you will have an enjoyable day. Thank you.
And could I please invite the chairman of the Polish Airmen Associations in the UK, Mr. Artur Peter. Thank you.
If I can sometimes take this off the stand, yeah, man.
Hi, I'm the one.
Can I do that?
I would rather not.
You'd rather not, okay. That is my trade, so I accept that. So take it on the chin. Don't applaud until I finish, you may not like it. I should begin the story very quickly, and I put it into written form because I can ad-lib. A lot of it's in my head, simply because I was brought up with all the airmen at that time, certainly around the country, not just in London. So I'm one of the children of the few, who became fewer every year. I got my own medals, but essentially I carried proudly my father's medals, who was pre-war, who was part of the Polish Air Force, and my mother's, who went through Siberia, joined the army, then joined the Air Force. She was in Bomber Command, my father was in Fire Command. Anyway, we'll start with Polish Air Force, quick resume, how it all happened. Yeah, please, if you could, please. Okay. Okay, alright, there you go. I just pressed the button here. It's done. Alright, at the beginning. It is the Polish Eagle. People don't always realise it's actually on one of our emblems. That was actually carried by the flight crew. And you had to be a pilot or a gun or whatever. Bizarrely, I'll just add this before I get started. Bizarrely, the pilot had a silver gun, we called it an Eagle, while the navigator and even the gunners had gold ones. Why? Because the guy at the front was the chauffeur, the guy in the back was the officer taking photos of everything. So bizarrely, we've kept that tradition, except for our organisation, where the people at the executive side are equal, but everybody else gets the privilege of wearing the silver ones. So let's go quickly about that. Next story is the badge that's often carried by the officer's cap. That badge is a Polish Eagle. This is apparently an Amazonian shield. And we all know how powerful the Amazonian women were like. And the feathers, if you like, on the either side of this badge are from our famous 16th and 17th century Polish hussars, and they defended the whole of Europe, not just Poland. And you'll see these, and the next one, if by sequence, will be what they look like. Most field cavalry for about 200 years in Europe protected most of Europe's borders, and I suppose protected the civilization as we knew it at that time. Anyway, we'll move on to not the First World War, because Poland was broken up by those. Sorry, you have to get that.
I have no idea.
Okay, it's okay. I'm used to not doing. Not what I'm doing. Anyway, set up the Polish Air Force at the same time the Royal Air Force was set up, 1918. And that's because before it was the Royal Flying Corps, now we called King Kong, if you like to know. So these guys are volunteers, helped set up the fledgling Polish Air Force. So the next one is what they look like. It's alright. I'm going to go quickly to this now. So, German aircraft, we also had Bristol aircraft supplied by Britain and other, my father, and made their way down to an area in Blackpool, where they were then sent to the various bases. combat pilots and ground crew, and particularly their ground crew skills. The Polish Airmen reinforced fighter command in the weeks from the middle of August to the middle of September, when it appeared that the RAF might well lose the battle. The statistics make interesting reading. The 146 Polish pilots made 5%, some 5% of fighter command strength, claiming around 203 German aircraft destroyed. At the same time, the two national squadrons, that's the Polish ones, were formed, suffered losses 70% lower than most RAF units. On the 15th of September, celebrated in the United Kingdom as the Battle of Britain Day, 1 in 5 of the Polish pilots in action was Polish. At the end of the 16-week campaign, the top scoring squadron in fighter command was 303 Squadron, which in 42 days was credited with 126 enemy aircraft, and arguably the most successful individual pilot with 17 victories was Sergeant Józef Franciszek, a Czech, who also flew with 303, considered to be the top scoring ace. And this was written before I knew the Czechs were joining us here today, so I would like to promote that. Eventually, the Polish Air Force was formed into 15 squadrons. And I'm going to scoot along if I can. This is the engagement in September, and the first aircraft, German aircraft to be shot down was by the Poles, probably Guinness if I'm not mistaken. Please carry on. This is our wash plane, laminar flow wings, and you can see very much like an airliner nowadays, twin wheels at the front. It's quite aerodynamic, variable prop, carried a greater load than the Wellington. Please. When we joined the French Air Force, you'll see this in films, we didn't know anything about retractable undercarriage. Not true. Mariners here, 406, retractable undercarriage and cannon armed. Please. So, Battle of Britain. How many squadrons in the Battle of Britain on the Polish side? Well, people say maybe one, maybe 303, 302. Actually, 4. Why? Because 2 of our squadrons were in Bomber Command. People forget about Bomber Command's contribution in the Battle of Britain. So 300 and 301, that's my mother's squadron 300, and 301 took part in bombing the invasion barges, which apparently is very important. So yes, we'd like to tell the story of perception. 4 squadrons, which then developed into 15, please. And this is the type of fighter they were flying, often. I say often because there were individual Polish pilots who flew Spitfires for British squadrons. But that's essentially an aircraft painted the markings of 303 Squadron, based at that time at Northolt, 11 Group, in constant use at that time. And I think that's important to say that probably, I wouldn't say it's more important than the Spitfire, but they actually shot down more German aircraft than the Spitfires. The Spitfires were tasked defending those fighters who were attacking the bombers, and they were to engage the German fighters normally, Spitfires. Please. There's another picture of 303, the markings, and you'll see later on, not often at the time of the battle itself, but later on they were getting the 303 badges. They inherited the Kościuszko squadron, which is the Stars and Stripes. Please, next one. Flight Lieutenant John Kent, Canadian boy birth, one of the top guys in the Battle of Britain. Amazing guy. We still keep in touch with his daughter, and he was actually charged with a flight with also Henneberg initially, and then later on Urbanowicz. And he was very doubtful at the beginning, but then he came back to thank everybody for not only contributing so much, but also saving his life a number of times. Please. Important for me is Ronald Gustav Keller, who, when hearing about how many we were shooting down on a daily basis, scratched his head and said, it can't be true. And without knowing non-strong new methods, he followed them. And he tried to engage himself, and he was pushed away by the Polish pilots, and he came back hopping mad saying, they are doing it, won't let me in. So he later wrote this: We fought together through the Great Offensive of 1940, and I then knew that the pilots of 303 Squadron were not only the best, but would also see me through any troubles. In the month of September, 303 Squadron was on top. No squadron from the Empire could equal the courage and the skill of our pilots. No bombing could daunt our airmen. Wing Commander Roland Gustav Pellet. Just one more quote before I go. He says, if you're finding time, if you can't believe it, it's all drinks on us. Okay, here we are. As far as we were concerned, we loved the Polish Allies. They were gallant and dedicated to destroying the enemy in the air. On the ground they were gay and amusing, sometimes tragic and forever loyal. It was a privilege to know them, fight with them and live with them. They added lustre to the cause of freedom for which we were all fighting. Group Captain Douglas Farmer.
This speech is not going to go on for too long. It's not meant to be an obituary, far from it. It's meant to be just a story about a member of the ground crew in the Polish Air Force. He was born in 1918 in Poznan, and he initially trained as a car mechanic. He was in Warsaw at the time, was trained as a car mechanic. And as a family, we've been really, really lucky because he kept diaries. He kept them most of his life, but the main diaries that we've retained are during the war period. They're written in tiny, tiny diaries, they were in those days. They're written in Polish, they're written, which I don't speak unfortunately, they're written in pencil, so they were all smudged, etc. But thankfully they've been translated, and now I can read exactly what he got up to, especially during the war years. And some of it's really, really interesting, really lovely. And so that's really where most of this documentation has come from, these details. Those diaries actually are RAF Northolt, and they're also at RAF Uxbridge on display amongst some of the other bits and pieces. So having trained as a mechanic, he ended up being drafted into the Italian Scoloni Lotnictwa at Święcie in just north of Warsaw, really, where he did his military service. The Soviets and the Germans invaded. He escaped in 1939. He took the Romanian route. He was interned in Romania. He escaped from there as well. In those diaries he recounted so many. He never spoke about it much during his lifetime, but the diaries do say quite a lot. And he spoke quite a lot about small stories, how lucky he was. 10 lorries escaped out of this particular location in Romania, and his lorry was the only one that got through. All the other 9 lorries, all of the people on board were killed. He had so many lucky escapes. This is how it works. From Romania, he then jumped on board the SS Transylvania. He went to Greece, Alexandria in Egypt, Palestine, ended up in Beirut in Syria in 1939. He spent Christmas celebrations at sea. He told another story. They were allowed on this ship, and all his Polish colleagues were allowed on the ship, but the captain said there's no food for them. They were very, very lucky because the shipment beforehand had been peanuts. So they survived on peanuts for weeks, and he had a loving, like a love for peanuts ever since, because it saved his life. Another one of these weird things, but they would find tiny store of peanuts in the corner of the ship, down the bows of the ship, and things like that. Yes, so Christmas 1939, he spent at sea, and New Year that year as well. He was also at sea. He ended up in Marseille in France. There he went to Lyon and Rennes, where he joined the Polish effort for the French. Then when the French surrendered, he jumped on board another ship and ended up in Falmouth in June 1940. Through West Kirby, just up the road from here, all the way to Blackpool, and that was the 2nd of July 1940. On the 2nd of August 1940, he was posted to RAF Norfolk to join the 303 Squadron. Their exploits have been already very well documented. We're all aware of 303 got up to. He remained with them for 3 years. Interestingly, in his diaries, on the 24th of July 1941, he had 7 days leave, and they all, as a squadron, it was a rest period, and they all came to all bases to Speke. So he was staying here on this airfield for 7 days, July 1941 onwards. And he enjoyed the city nightlife there. They worked hard, the squadrons, they worked so hard during the day, but in the evening they really knew how to enjoy themselves. They formed small bands, he would play the violin, and they would go off and play in the dance floors, and then the following day they were back on the airfields and working on the aircraft. So they really did, I suspect the current Polish forces are similar. I just believe that's what they probably do, from my experience.
The 312 were given old hurricanes. He was flying this hurricane, the hurricane went on fire, the engine. He parachuted himself out of his aircraft, landed in the River Mersey, just not far away from here, and his parachute actually went over him. So it was his parachute that drowned him. It wasn't the accident itself. Otto was incredibly, as I found out online, he was an incredibly talented pilot, and I think his loss being the first out of his squadron, but also dying in a way that isn't very much sort of related to his fight or dying in his aircraft was quite sad. The second of the Czechoslovaks, so he was actually born in Romania, if I remember correctly. The flying officer Jindřich Bartoš, he died in 1941.
Deputy Lieutenant, Deputy Lord Mayor, Excellencies and guests, thank you so much for today. We at the Royal British Legion love working with the Merseyside Polonia because the passion in the room is unlike no other. The stories that the Poles and the Czechs hold about the memories of their service personnel, we need to sort of take stock and look at that ourselves. So we work really closely with Merseyside Polonia. We've done several events, this being one of them. And we are looking at the way communities remember not just the Second World War, but service and sacrifice from across the sort of generations and wars, especially with, like I said, the political climate that we face ourselves at the moment. So it's really important for us as an organisation to make sure that remembrance is kept alive, and the memories and the sacrifices that those people made during those war years is never forgotten. So the iconic aircraft of World War II is the Spitfire. Although we know that everybody from the Polish squadrons as well, from the Hurricanes. But the Spitfire is that symbol of freedom, it is a symbol of victory, it is the symbol of resilience and sort of resistance to sort of the Nazi occupation of Europe. So to that end, we are working with a community group, the Community Spitfire Project, which you'll have seen the cardboard Spitfire. And again with Alan, who is the lead engineer on that. That is a project which brings the iconic plane and the history of those pilots who flew those planes, and the aircrew and the engineers and the female factory workers who put those aircraft together back into people's consciousness. So we're taking that into schools and youth groups. So I'd encourage anybody who has contact with a youth group that would like us to come in and talk about that. The element we're looking with that is about the STEM, so the science, the technology, the engineering, the mathematics around the aircraft, which means we can embed history, we can embed these stories, but we can also embed a little bit of fun by getting them to paint them, and we can also embed that glee for learning and engineering that therefore bears by making them by hand in factories. One of the other things I'm really proud to do with Merseyside Polonia, and I won't go on, is we have engaged a group of crocheters, got that right, didn't I? Crocheters, not knitters. knitters across several different communities, and we are building a full-size replica Spitfire. Well, Alan is, I'm not, I'm just bringing him some wood. Which the skin of that is going to be a crocheted in D-Day colours, and we are proud to announce that the markings on that will be a Polish aircraft. So the Polish ladies who are hopefully now finishing off, we will be unveiling that in Southport in October, and it'll be free to display outside the Atkinson. And then we're looking for a permanent home for that aircraft afterwards, so that legacy and that story can be told. So I'd like to thank Merseyside Polonia for inviting us in. We, as an organisation, love history. It's part of what we do, especially with Remembrance coming up. And I'd encourage everybody to speak to Alan across there and to have a drink and some canapes. Thank you very much.